All right. Well, good morning. Well, I guess it's good morning for us. It may be midnight when you're watching this, but for us, it's good morning. So I'm Mark Duggin, and of course, I've got Bob Mumford here. We wanted to do a second piece as a little follow-up to the first 3 points of the Things That Matter plumb line. So just as a quick review of those first 3 things that we mentioned and kind of had some fun discussion on the previous video, those were embracing the purpose of God when he engaged you. The second one was to intentionally reside in the living room.
Yeah.
And the third one was to embrace agape as the only absolute.
Wow.
So those were really fun. I was telling Bob before we started that as a younger man than Bob, that when I hear you kind of put these things together as these are 6 things that matter,
Yes.
I think I'm really going to hear this because you've journeyed these 90 years.
Yes.
And these are some takeaways. These are not things that were a good idea for a fad or a 10-year time frame. These have really persevered and stood the test of time. And I think they would be, if you engage with these themes that way and you think about them that way, they really come to bear on every area of your life. I mean, it really seems...
Mark, it's a heart cry, I'm telling you. And we're not selling anything. We're trying to find that narrow path that leads to the Father. And so choosing those 6 things was exceedingly difficult and complex because the options are many. But
Sure.
The word ineffable, I'm not trying to impress you with my big words, but ineffable means hard to describe, almost impossible to communicate.
Sure.
And these concepts are so difficult to explain in a way that we would own them.
See, well, that's key. I mean,
it's
taking that point of just hearing the idea versus finding application day to day is the real issue. Because anybody would hear these and think, oh, those are great ideas. But it's more than a great idea.
But this plumb line is not a great idea. This plumb line is a lifesaver.
One of the first things when you sent over the plumb line, I remember we called you and we're like, I don't think Things That Matter is the right title.
Yeah.
And then we came back and let's look at reality. Let's talk about, and you mentioned that several times in it.
Yeah.
And then after a month, we came back and said, no, Things That Matter is the right title. That's what we need to do. And so there it is. But I think when you're talking about not good ideas, reality comes to bear and you see it through that lens.
See, life is more unforgiving than anybody knows. So that kingdom is how Father prevents us from reaping what we have already sown.
That's good.
Hear me?
Yes.
The redemptive act is Father releasing me from false presuppositions and erroneous value system until I can see and embrace kingdom centrality. The one thing the Lord asks us, if you can hear me, I'm asking you, make kingdom priority.
Yes. Seek first.
Seek first. And the rest of it is added. Now, I promise or some crazy word, but if we take these 7 and examine them carefully and own them, I am testifying and I will stand accountable for the years of walking all the religious, every kind of denomination, nations, everything, till we have sorted the stuff and think these 6 terms really do matter.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you,
Absolutely.
They really do matter. And these 6 will take us to other things that matter. If you prioritize, I will add to you the rest of it. So I'm not worried about your future, because once you touch these, and Judith and I can testify in a court of law that these are the basic 6 principles that carried us through our marriage, our children, crisis, betrayal, double dealing, all the stuff that happens in life. And so here we are, and we're trying to impart the value. It isn't just another writing. I couldn't stand it.
Well, and part of when you say value, so much of what we discussed for the last few years has been this kingdom value system.
Yes.
And seeing it as a value system instead of just some simple set of rules that we're going to apply, it really makes it a cohesive way forward that the implications are deep reaching.
Well, it's, and she communicating a spiritual truth. It has to be imparted. Sure. It is not academic. We have been set free from the prison of the 5 senses.
Yes.
So all 6 of these function in the 6th sense.
In the spiritual
dimension. Now the eyes of my heart, spiritual ears, be able to see the mind of Christ. So now, all of a sudden, I am seeing and hearing and perceiving, and joy and purpose emerges out of that. And so, in my understanding, it takes these 6 principles
to move you into that.
That's right. Otherwise, I am happy that I'm Christian and I'm going to heaven, and life sucks.
Right.
That.
So try to line all that up. All this, but life sucks. Well, let's jump into the first one of these. So the first of the 3 in this one, in the second portion, is to yoke yourself with Christ in authentic altruism. And when we were talking about this before we turned on the camera, I had mentioned of the subjective nature of how I saw altruism.
Yes.
And trying to discern, how do I know if I'm actually doing someone good? And then what is my motivation in doing that? How are we to discern that we really are joining Christ in something?
Oh, man. You saying sick 'em to a bulldog now, but for us to understand the difference between God's little helper that causes much pain, maybe more pain than anybody knows.
Sure.
And a true desiring or encouraging to help do others good. If I could, one phrase, agape does not have a hidden motive. Mm-hmm. I am not after anything from you. I am not wanting anything. There's no hidden thing underneath that when you finally open that I will gain reward. And altruism means I truly intend to bless you without reward.
Sure.
I have no desire to gain out of this, and so it turned me on to that. I just get crazy because, and see, when Jesus heals the person, he said, "Go tell the priest." He's not reaching for him to follow him. He wants him to bear witness to the goodness of God, his Father.
Yes, and live in the community that he already has.
And that, yes, sir.
Well, I think that one of the things you mentioned in there is that altruism is the practical outplay of agape. And one of the things we've looked at agape for 20 years has been, or for you 30,
Yes.
or how longer,
Yeah.
but has really been the idea that agape ascribes the value outside of the person. So the person isn't bringing anything, or the thing isn't bringing anything. It's one of the attributes of agape, is that you're giving the value outside of that. So it allows you to join Christ in altruism without that payback, without looking for that motive or advantage.
God the Father is agape. He doesn't have agape. That's who he is. That's his nature, his DNA. Mm-hmm. That DNA is given to Christ. I receive Christ and the DNA of agape. The transformation that Christ has made in my life, please hear this. The end result of the new birth is for me to love as Father loves.
Yes. Yes.
Father, incarnation, Christ, incarnate, Bob Mumford. The kingdom is now in my heart, and he is asking me now to love hurting people in the same way he loves hurting people. Mark, I am practicing this, fail as many times as I succeed, but every time I actually succeed, joy and purpose and meaning and depth and something comes out of it that I would give anything to communicate to the underwriters, anyone who's listening or reading the plumb line. If you would just try it.
Yes.
So these six things are not academic that you could be more spiritual. They are instructions to believe and act upon that will, I guarantee, the end result.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of the fun things that you mentioned in here, I say fun things. I mean, it's fun when you look at it from a distance, is not answering questions that haven't been asked. Can you say a little bit about what you see and how we're prone to do that, and then the difficulty of that?
One of my mentors in Bible college, actually, he introduced me to a lot of this without the terminology.
Sure.
You understand?
He
was walking in stuff that he couldn't define.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, instead of going to Bibles to my study hall, I would go sit in his classes and see. I watched him, and finally I said to him, "Why don't you challenge?" Oh, Bob, he said, if you can hear me now, and I knew something was coming, and if you can hear me now, to answer questions that haven't been asked is a form of salesmanship. In other words, I'm putting my thing on you. Mm-hmm. And see, he refused to do that. If the students didn't know enough to ask, they weren't prepared for the answer.
Sure.
Sure. So, talk about logic. So for the years, see, say, what do you mean by agape? The question precedes the hunger and the need for an answer.
Yes.
Yes. And
that's so good.
Mark, it has worked at all levels. Highest levels, I've been involved with high-level stuff. And when they ask, what is it, this kingdom thing? Who are you? What are you doing? So then the moment the question is asked, and if you read the New Testament in this light, you will see, men and brethren, what shall we do? Mm-hmm. The question precedes a true biblical answer, and it's not salesman.
I see it. I do.
Thank you, man.
So if we jump to the point 5, so this would be the next one here in the sequence, is holding family as the foundation of God's purpose in the earth. And I think that just culturally, and this is a global phenomenon, no doubt, the importance of family. Can you just talk a little bit about what you see in some of those things as far as the crucial nature of that, and maybe what happens when we lose that dynamic of the immediate family?
One of the major themes, old and new biblical themes, is all the families of the earth will be blessed.
Yes.
Here's how I understand it, and I believe it's from years of examination. We need influencers very badly. We know what they are now because they've appeared in our society.
It's timely. Influencers are everywhere. It's a job now.
Oh my, it's an actual job.
It's a job.
Now, kingdom is influence. It's not ownership. Mm-hmm. So if I understand what Father is wanting, he is wanting influencers for society that would heal society. So family is the basic influencer of all the world. A healthy family,
yes,
and the ability, father and mother and children, and that influence holds society. And so, I don't want to go too far with this, but when we embrace the kingdom, what Jesus is building is his family.
Yes.
He's not building another monster. He's building family. Now, I'll quit when I say this, but if I am conformed to the image of Christ, mm-hmm. I become his brother or his sister.
Yes.
John 1:12. I am giving you authority to be part of my family.
That's a big statement.
Oh, Mark, when I saw it like that, and it changed everything for me, because I honor the authority, I use the authority, I speak that authority, and that's why family was one of the things that matter. Now, that sort of takes us to the next point.
Well, I do want to point out real quick that
initially,
not initially, but the main emphasis is a lot of natural family and the importance of it. But then what you just made was the segue into the spiritual realm and seeing that, because when we're put into Christ's family, that's the invitation for all of us, is to walk in that space that he already has for us since before the foundation of the earth.
Absolutely.
And the implications are very natural when you look going from natural family and then into the spiritual realm. I mean, it really has those same implications.
Oh, man. Let's take a point here, because this is the ineffable part of it, to keep working at the thing and massaging it until the concept itself is owned. Then the applications go ever. So they say to Jesus, what is the kingdom? And he says, the kingdom is light. The kingdom is salt. The kingdom is yeast. And I saw it. Light,
salt,
yeast are all influence. There's no ownership in it. I am influencing a hurting society to embrace the answers for a hurting society. I can't command you. I can't own you. I can't impose it on you. Mm-hmm. I can live it and present it. So I want to present what we're saying as light. I want to present what we're saying as salt. It keeps from corruption.
Yes.
Light dispels the darkness. Salt breaks the corruption. And yeast is the strong influence that changes everything. Now, if I were pastoring again, I would call it Salt, Light, and Yeast Fellowship or something. and see, then all of a sudden, my life matters. I'm really doing something that counts. I'm enjoying the thing.
Let's back to that first point of purpose. What is the reason, Mark, the purpose when Christ first engaged you? You find that in this space.
And you can't get there. So salt, light, and yeast is not salesmanship.
I see that.
Hear me?
That's a lie.
It's not. That's why not answering questions that haven't been asked is the moment I do that. And I don't want to tell war stories now, but see, people would say, my witness on the airplane when I'm traveling, I just love that, and I was on the plane and there's nobody on the plane, and this girl gets on about 25 years old, comes all the way down the thing, sits next to me, and and I thought, I needed quiet, and she says to me, who are you and what do you do? Mm-hmm. And I laughed. I said, you have asked the wrong question. And she laughed. We had 2.5 hours, found out that she had known the Lord, trashed it all. She's in tears, I'm in tears, but it didn't come by my invading her space. It came because her question and her action told me she needed to hear.
Sure.
Does that make sense, man?
It does.
Oh my goodness, I was so, and she laughed, and we hugged each other before we left the plane. It was that intense. And I thought, isn't it? But she came clear. I think there were 5, 6 people on the plane, and she comes all the way back, sits right beside me. I'm at the window. She sits in the thing,
right,
and it starts. So now, salt, light, yeast. If you keep that in focus, that keeps us from being God's little helper.
It does. Well, I think that influence piece really moves us into the last of these 6. And when we were talking to him yesterday, I had mentioned when I see influence, a lot of times we talk about Abraham and his full persuasion. And I think Abraham was fully persuaded. It's a very almost subjective journey in that he's not convinced or certainty. There's a confidence in that persuasion. And I think that came by influence. And the last of this is joining Christ and giving the world its Father back. And that's what Abraham saw. He had some insight of this fathering that's blessing all the families of the earth. And so when we think about that moves, that influence, he is fully persuaded, and then he lives his life according to what he's seen, with many complications, of course. But he is persuaded in that, and you see that.
When you meet somebody, anybody, that is fully persuaded, you know it.
Yes.
Most people are half persuaded about 25,000 things.
Right.
When you meet somebody fully persuaded about something, it's a joy. Mm-hmm. Whether it's football or astronauts,
yes, they're interested.
Yeah, and I met a young man some years ago, and I just loved him, and I thought, man, you are a joy to be around. And I said, what's your life goal? He lights up, and he said, oh, Bob, I'm training my life to be an astronaut. This was in Princeton, New Jersey, by the way. I'm in Princeton, I am going to be an astronaut. And the joy and purpose. And I saw him in a way. Now, for us to be able, if I and we would be able to communicate to you the ultimate purpose of the New Testament is not heaven or hell. Please hear me. The ultimate purpose of the New Testament is to receive the kingdom offer, to join Christ in bringing God's authority back to all humanity. This is 1 Corinthians 15, verse 28, in any translation. Father, and so when I saw that, that's my inheritance, it's my call, it's my purpose, it's what causes us to walk through pain and failure and crazies and betrayal and double dealing, because I am fully persuaded that my life counts, because we are moving towards the purpose of restoring God's fatherhood. If we back up all 6 of these points, they all take us to the 6th one.
Yes.
What is salvation? Join me, Jesus said. Participate with me. Make your life a kingdom life so that you could participate with me in doing what we need to do to see that hurting humanity gets their father back. One phrase, and I hope it sticks in your memory. Christ came to return the earth and the family, the whole human family, to its rightful owner. The rightful owner of the universe and of all humanity is God the Father. He states it like this: when God is all things to all people.
Yes. Yes.
Man, and see, Joy, I'm 91. I've been doing this almost 70 years, and I just asked the Lord for another 10.
That's right. We're joining you in that. That's good.
I hope all that makes sense, and it's so preparatory, and I pray it will leap off the pages when we read this.
Oh, I think it will, and I think it does. And so we just invite you, of course, to read it. We'll put a link below in the description of this video where you can get a digital copy of it or a paper copy if you want one mailed to you. But after you engage with this, after you read through it, we'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. Feel free to post them below or email us. But we would love to, hear what you're hearing Father say to you and your journey and how these 6 points apply. And we bless you in that.